We are here. Shana Tova umetuka. And these two sentences by themselves aren't a small thing. We're starting a year in which the idea of being here has received many new meanings. And I am sure that many of us, when we look back to the year that has passed, struggle to find its sweetness. All our senses are saying, okay, we actually know what happened last year, so let's look forward. Let's focus on the future and on wishful thinking. But Jewish tradition tells us, wait a minute. We don't commence a year by turning on the page and looking forward. We rather start the year by looking back, trying to understand what has happened to us and how we dealt with that. The Jewish notion of time is deeply rooted in the reflection on yesterday, being fully present today, and at the same time, building and trying to shape the future that we would like to eventually experience. Some of you might remember that a year ago, in the morning of Rosh Hashanah, we discussed this idea that when we wish each other a sweet year, we are not asking for a sugar-coated year, but we are wishing each other the strength to face life circumstances with our best abilities. Now, I think that most of us could agree that we never imagined that our year was going to be completely painted by a pandemic experience that affected our personal, social, communal, and national lives. And so this year, for many of us, it is too painful to look back and particularly difficult to be present in the here and now. The pandemic dramatically changed the reality of our lives, and we are still mourning the loss of that reality. Our tradition provides a time frame for mourning. After a year, the mourning time ends. That doesn't mean that we don't carry the pain anymore, but it is a reminder of the imperative to seek for life's continuity. We keep saying in our prayers, Mechayem etim, we imagine the revival of the dead as a glimpse of the reality we wish to revive, but at the same time, we do understand that the reality we knew is gone, and that now we need to gather all our efforts in creating a new one. Not by forgetting our past, but neither by denying our present and consequently our future. So how do we seek for that continuity when it feels like the entire world has stopped? The scholar Ron Heifetz makes a very interesting distinction between emergency and crisis. Heifetz explains that when we respond to an emergency, we need to bring all our resources in order to make it through. He says, if you don't respond to the emergency well enough, you won't make it to the ER. During the emergency phase, you try to stabilize the situation and to buy time. The second phase is no longer an emergency. This phase is an adaptive one. And it is when you tackle the causes of the crisis that you build the capacity to thrive in a new reality. The first months of the pandemic were certainly an emergency. But now is the time to switch to the understanding that we are no longer in an emergency phase. Dealing with this situation as a crisis rather than as an emergency would bring us up to the challenge of creating a new, strong reality, as opposed to procrastinating life until the storm might end. And so, trying to focus on the things that we can do. Last year, I shared with you 5 principles for Jewish resilience. I want to quickly remind them to you and to add one more. So here they are, 6 principles for building resilience from a Jewish perspective. Number 1, B'Tselem Elohim, self-care. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you are eating well and exercising. Remember to breathe, pray, meditate. Your soul needs attention. Don't procrastinate your health. Number 2, Odaya, gratitude. We have so many reasons to complain, but don't let that take over. The klala, the curse, comes with ease. Recognizing brachot, blessings, takes work. Make sure that you do the work and take the time to acknowledge, to count your blessings. Number 3, reflection, teshuvah. Let's look at our lives inquisitively. Let's make sure that what we did wrong yesterday is not repeated today. And even better, we have the ability to rectify things. Number 4, keilah. Be intentional about connecting with others. Don't allow physical distance to become social apathy. Make sure that you engage in the lives of your fellows and that you invite them to participate in yours. Share tzures and share simchas. Make sure that you share. Number 5, hope. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs says that hope is the defeat of probability by the force of possibility. Embrace what is possible, and with your actions, keep expanding the limitations of the reality that you are experiencing. Now, before I give you number 6, the bonus track for the pandemic year, I want to share with you a story about the connection between hope, number 5, and time. This story is attributed to Rabbi Hugo Green. He tells that when he was just a child in the ghetto with his father, one day, during the festival of Hanukkah, they received margarine as their daily ration. And the father decided that he was going to use that margarine to light a Hanukkah candle. When Hugo saw it, asked him, "Dad, what are you doing? This is the only food we have." And so his father said, "Hugo, we have learned in this camp that you can live 3 weeks without food. For 3 days, you can go without water, but you cannot live even 3 minutes without hope." And that changed him. We learned during this past year that quite a few things are truly essential. In fact, the word essential received several definitions during this time. Essential workers, essential needs. Toilet paper became essential. A mask is essential. So many essentials. But there are also emotional and spiritual essentials. And if we don't cover those, we cannot succeed to build a present and a future. So it's not just about having Amazon Prime or making sure you can use Instacart or having someone to bring your groceries. It is also finding strength in your spirit. And here it is, number 6, the bonus track for the pandemic year. Time, kedusha, the sacredness of now. We can't wait to make our days count. In our tradition, time is certainly an essential component, an existential component. Rashi, the medieval Torah commentator, said that the Torah itself should have started in the book of Exodus when we were given the first mitzvah as the Jewish people, which was actually marking the calendar. The calendar has its all. Our holidays are called sacred convocations. In the old Israel, in order to announce the beginning of a new month, 2 witnesses needed to go to Jerusalem to testify that they saw a new moon. Who was commanded to fulfill that mitzvah? Who had such a responsibility? Everyone. Everyone needed to show up to fulfill that mitzvah because the calendar synchronizes us and helps us share our lives. It brings us together. The holidays are when we see and are seen. And so Rashi asks, what does the Torah begin with the story of creation? Now, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik answers Rashi's question, saying that the reason that the book of creation, Genesis, is so expansive and specific is in order for us to understand a very important Jewish principle. When Genesis tells us we were created in God's image and at the same time describes God as a creator, to Soloveitchik, this means that we were created in order to continue the act of creation. Now, in the story of creation, there is only one thing that is sacred, and it is time. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel describes that the Shabbat and our holidays are a palace in time that we need to enter. But if one looks at this through the lens of Soloveitchik, it is not that you just need to enter the palace. You actually have got to build it. Now, the beauty of this palace is that it has enough space for these 3 giants to come together, Heschel, Soloveitchik, and Rashi. When we understand this palace as something that we need to build for ourselves and for our coming together. Time is not here for us to sit and wait for things to get better, but rather for us to be present in the here and now and to make things better. Let's allow our tradition to help us make sure that our days count. Let's add our holidays into our Google Calendar. Let's be intentional about celebrating Shabbat. Let's be intentional about celebrating the holidays. Let's start to plan now for Sukkot, for Simchat Torah, for Hanukkah, for Tu B'Shvat. Let's make each Shabbos a reason for self-care, for the encountering of our souls, for the encountering of each other, and for together. It is on us to reimagine and to keep creating. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs said, a Jew is to be an agent of hope in a world constantly threatened by despair. Every ritual, every mitzvah, every page of Jewish story, every element of the Jewish law is a protest against escapism, resignation, and the acceptance of destiny. While we still hold the pain of the loss of the reality we knew, while we are still uncertain regarding what the future will present before us, we are here, and so we will challenge the decree by keeping ourselves strong, by strengthening one another, and by making sure that we strive for no less than the sweetest year. Shana Tova u'metuka.